My name is Trey, and I am 61 years old. The day I paid off my house, I thought I had finally outrun hardship. I remember standing at the bank counter, my hands slightly trembling as the clerk slid the final document toward me. Congratulations, Mr. Trey, your mortgage is officially paid in full. Paid in full. 10 years, 10 long years. 10 years of waking up before sunrise. 10 years of overtime shifts that left my back stiff and my hands cracked. 10 years of saying not now to vacations, new clothes and simple comforts. I walked out of that bank feeling 10 feet tall. That house wasn't just property. It was proof that I survived after losing my wife. It was proof that I had raised my son Caleb alone and still built something solid. It was proof that even grief couldn't bankrupt me. I sat in my truck for a moment and looked at the receipt again. I even laughed softly. You did it, I whispered to myself. I called Caleb immediately. Son, I said, barely containing my excitement, it's done, the house is mine. He sounded genuinely happy. That's amazing, Dad, we'll celebrate tonight. That word felt warm. That evening, Caleb and his wife Vanessa came over with a cake that read paid in full in bright blue icing. We sat at the same dining table where my late wife used to sit at the head. For a moment, it felt like she was there, smiling. Vanessa clapped her hands. Now you can finally relax, Trey. Relax? That word sounded like a promise. I imagined fishing trips. I imagined fixing up my old Mustang in the garage. I imagined sitting on the porch in the evenings without a single bill hanging over my head. For the first time in years, I slept peacefully. But peace can be fragile. And sometimes it disappears quietly. 3 days later, Caleb came over alone. He didn't sit down. He stood near the kitchen sink, rubbing his hands together. Vanessa's parents lost their rental, he said. The landlord sold the place. I listened carefully. They just need somewhere temporary, he added quickly. A few months until they figure things out. My stomach tightened. You're asking if they can move in. It's a big house, Dad, you've got the space. The space? The extra bedroom still had my wife's quilt folded neatly at the edge of the bed. The den held old photo albums and memories that hadn't faded. How long? I asked. Just a few months. I looked at my son. I remembered him at 7 years old, crying because he scraped his knee. I remembered carrying him when he fell asleep in the car. I remembered promising myself that no matter what happened, he would never feel abandoned. All right, I said quietly, a few months. That was my mistake. They didn't just arrive with suitcases. They arrived with furniture, with appliances, with expectations. Vanessa's parents moved into the guest room. Her sister arrived for support. The sister's teenage son followed. A cousin needed temporary space. A brother needed just a short stay. Within 1 week, my house felt unfamiliar. The quiet mornings I loved were replaced with loud television and clattering dishes. Vanessa's mother reorganized my kitchen. It flows better this way, she said, smiling as if she had done me a favor. Her father claimed my recliner. The teenage nephew turned the volume up on everything. I told myself, be patient, they're family. But patience has a limit. And mine was slowly thinning. One afternoon, I came home from work and walked into the garage. My heart sank. My tools were pushed aside. My wife's cedar chest was shoved against the wall. Gym equipment stood where my workbench used to be. Who moved my things? I asked sharply. Vanessa's cousin shrugged. Needed room. Needed room. In my garage. I found Caleb that evening. This isn't what we agreed to. He exhaled heavily. Dad, you're making it a bigger deal than it is. A bigger deal, I repeated. They've taken over the house. They're just getting comfortable. Comfortable. The word struck me differently now. They were comfortable. I was not. Months passed. No one left. Instead, more boxes arrived. More relatives visited and stayed longer than expected. My grocery bills doubled. My water bill climbed. The house echoed with voices that didn't belong to me. One evening, I overheard Vanessa's mother say something that changed everything. "Well, now that Trey paid it off, this house is basically family property." Family property. I stood frozen in the hallway. The walls that had witnessed my sacrifices were now being claimed by people who never carried the weight. That night, I sat on the porch long after midnight. The yard looked the same, the windows glowed from inside, but I felt like an outsider looking in. I had worked 10 years for ownership, and yet I felt dispossessed. The breaking point came when I found a banner in the living room. "Welcome home." "For who?" I asked. Vanessa smiled brightly, "My brother, moving in for a while." "For a while," I repeated. Caleb didn't look at me. Something inside me, something quiet and patient, finally cracked. "This is not a boarding house," I said, my voice trembling. "This is my home." Vanessa crossed her arms. "You're being selfish." Selfish. The word burned deeper than any insult before it. "I paid for this house," I said slowly. "Every payment, every dollar." Caleb's voice sharpened. "You don't have to throw that in everyone's face." "I'm not throwing it," I replied. "I'm reminding you." That night I walked through each room. I touched the walls. I paused at the doorway where Caleb's height was marked in pencil over the years. I remembered painting these rooms with my wife, laughing when we spilled paint, dreaming about retirement. I realized something painful. I had been so afraid of disappointing my son that I had allowed myself to disappear. Helping family is noble, but losing yourself is not. The next morning, I called a lawyer. 2 weeks later, I gathered everyone in the living room. They looked irritated. I handed them each a notice. "You have 30 days to move out." The silence was heavy. "You can't be serious," Vanessa's mother exclaimed. "I am." Caleb stared at me like I was a stranger. "Dad, are you choosing a house over your family?" The question pierced me. "I'm choosing respect," I said calmly. "I agreed to help. I did not agree to surrender my home." Vanessa shook her head. "Where are we supposed to go?" "That is not my responsibility," I replied. "I have already done more than enough." The next 30 days were cold. No one spoke to me unless necessary. But slowly, boxes returned. Furniture left. The noise faded. And one day, the house was quiet again. Caleb was the last to leave. He stood at the doorway, suitcase in hand. "You've changed, Dad." I looked at him carefully. "No," I said softly, "I've remembered who I am." He left without hugging me. The door shut, and silence filled the house. But this time, the silence felt like healing. The first night alone, I sat in my recliner. Mine. I listened to the refrigerator hum, to the wind outside, to my own breathing. I walked into the garage and put everything back exactly where it belonged. I placed my wife's cedar chest in its rightful spot. The house felt like it exhaled, as if it too had been waiting to be reclaimed. 3 months later, Caleb called. His voice was quieter. "Dad, I didn't see it before. I thought you'd always just give in." I didn't respond immediately. "We're renting now," he said. "It's tight. I guess I understand what it takes to pay for a place." Understanding often comes through experience. "I love you," he added. "I love you too," I replied, "but love doesn't mean erasing yourself." He came over the following Sunday, alone. We had coffee at the kitchen table. It felt different. Respect had replaced entitlement. Boundaries had restored what guilt nearly destroyed. Now, at 61 years old, I sit on my porch in the evenings with peace in my chest. The house is still the same structure, but it means something deeper now. It reminds me that generosity must walk hand in hand with wisdom. It reminds me that sacrifice should not be endless. And it reminds me that even at 61, you can still stand up for yourself. Because here is the truth I learned. If you give without limits, some people will take without shame. If you never say no, your yes loses value. And if you do not protect your peace, no one else will. I paid off my house in 10 years. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was finding the courage to say, "This is my home, and I will not disappear inside it." Moral: helping family is an act of love, but true love includes boundaries. Respect yourself enough to protect what you worked for, because peace is priceless and dignity is not negotiable.